32 days. No proof of life. No arrest. No named suspect. An 84-year-old grandmother with a pacemaker and a daily medication schedule that cannot be missed has been gone for over a month. And the one family member most trained to handle a crisis like this one has been completely invisible since day 7 of the investigation. And not a single person on television has thought to ask why. Welcome back to Cold Case History. I am going to walk you through every detail of this case. The footage, the forensics, the suspect behavior, the DNA, and the digital evidence trail. If you are new here, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. We cover every update on cases like this one the moment they break. And trust me, this one is not finished breaking yet. Let's begin at the beginning. There are 3 of them. 3 children that Nancy Guthrie raised from the rubble of a life that fell apart without warning. In 1988, her husband died of a sudden heart attack and left her alone in Tucson with 3 kids and no roadmap for what came next. She did not collapse. She held them together with everything she had. 3 children who grew up in the same house, who buried their father together, who wrapped themselves so tightly around one another that Savannah once said, when their dad died, the whole family hung on to each other for dear life. You know 2 of them well by now. You know Savannah, the one with the camera pointed at her every morning on national television. The one who put up a $1 million reward and stood in front of the country and let her grief be watched in real time. You know Annie, the middle child, the poet and jewelry maker, the one who went quiet for 22 days while the internet picked her life apart, whose husband drove Nancy home on the last night she was seen, whose car sat in an FBI evidence bay for 32 days. But there is a 3rd child. His name is Colonel Charles Cameron Guthrie, call sign Arlo. He spent 26 years flying F-16 Fighting Falcons with the Vermont Air National Guard's 158th Fighter Wing, known as the Green Mountain Boys. He retired as a full colonel in 2018, one of the highest ranks a commissioned officer can hold before crossing into general officer territory. His career was built on mission planning, precision execution, high-pressure decision-making, and tactical communication at speeds exceeding Mach 2. Savannah marked his retirement on Instagram with words that left no ambiguity about how the family sees him. She called him the pride of our family and one of this country's finest. He grew up in Tucson. He is the eldest of Nancy's 3 children, born around 1964, which puts him at approximately 61 years old. He is the only son. When their father died in 1988, Cameron was in his early 20s. Savannah was 16. While his sisters built lives in the arts and in broadcast media, Cameron built his in the sky, in a single-seat combat aircraft, and in the disciplined operational culture of the American military. By design, by choice, and by temperament, he kept his private life extremely private. No public social media, no interviews, no media appearances. He lived in Vermont, roughly 2,300 miles from his mother's home in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, Arizona. And then February 1st, 2026 arrived, and Cameron Guthrie became briefly, deliberately, and precisely visible. For exactly 7 days. Nancy Guthrie vanished from her Tucson home on the 1st of February. She is 84 years old. She has been missing now for over a month. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has fielded more than 40,000 tips. Investigators have reviewed tens of thousands of hours of surveillance footage. The FBI has been on the ground. Former agents have appeared on every network. And yet, as of this recording, there has been no arrest, no named suspect, and no confirmation that Nancy is alive. Sheriff Chris Nanos has told the public that investigators are getting closer to identifying 1 or more suspects. He has remained publicly optimistic. But optimism is not the same as answers. And after 32 days, the family has offered over $1.2 million in reward money. Tips can be submitted through the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Department, and still no one has been charged. The public conversation about this case has orbited almost entirely around 2 people. Tommaso Dallabala, Annie's husband, the man who cooked Nancy dinner on the last night and drove her home, the man who has never spoken publicly, the man that cable news labeled a prime suspect within weeks. And Annie herself, the middle child who went quiet for 22 days, whose behavior became a subject of national analysis, whose marriage and finances and daily life were examined on television by former FBI profilers. But Charles Cameron Guthrie, the eldest child, the decorated military officer, the one sibling trained in exactly the kind of operational crisis management that a kidnapping demands, has not been part of that conversation once. Let me walk you through what he did in those 7 days, because the precision of his behavior during that window is remarkable, and its contrast with the silence that followed is something that deserves a direct and honest examination. February 4th, Day 3 of the investigation. Savannah posted the first family video to Instagram. All three siblings were present. Savannah spoke at length. Annie was visible and emotional. At the end of the video, Cameron looked into the camera and delivered 9 words. "We love you, Mom. Stay strong. Come home. Measured. Clean. Controlled. February 5th, day 4. This is the one that matters most." Cameron recorded a solo video. He is the only sibling other than Savannah to ever record a solo video in this entire investigation. He looked directly into the lens and delivered what can only be described as a structured operational communication. He identified himself by name. He stated his authority by announcing he was speaking for the Guthrie family. He established the mission objective, which was communication with whoever was holding his mother. He set a precondition, proof of life. And he signaled readiness by stating that the family was waiting for contact and prepared to move forward once that contact was established. Read that sequence again and understand what it is. That is not grief. That is a briefing. That is a man who has spent more than 2 decades communicating under extreme pressure, delivering a precise, structured message to an adversary. There is no wavering in it. There is no trembling voice or emotional digression. It has the measured cadence of someone trained to communicate clearly when everything is on the line. February 7th, day 6. The 3 siblings appeared together in their 3rd video. Savannah spoke. She said the family had received the kidnapper's message and understood it, that they were begging for Nancy's return, and that they were prepared to pay. Annie did not speak. Cameron did not speak. He sat beside his sisters, held their hands, and was present. And after that video was posted, Cameron Guthrie disappeared from public view entirely. He was not in any subsequent video. He did not give any interview. He made no public statements. And on March 2nd, day 30 of the investigation, when Savannah, Annie, and Tommaso walked arm in arm to a memorial outside Nancy's home and laid yellow flowers and wept and left a handwritten note, while every television network in America captured the moment, the eldest child of the missing woman was not there. He was not in the frame. He was not referenced. He was not mentioned. If you're still here, subscribe, because cases like this only work when people stay and tell us where you're watching from. I love seeing my global family represent. Drop your country or city in the comments. Now consider what the behavioral analysts in this case have made their entire framework out of. Silence. Patterns. Inside knowledge. Who went quiet and when. Who behaved differently from what was expected. Those are the analytical tools that have been applied to Annie and Tommaso in painstaking detail on network after network. And when you apply those same tools to Cameron Guthrie, something genuinely striking emerges. 3 siblings. 3 completely different trajectories through this investigation. Savannah, the youngest, became the public face. She made 6 videos. She posted weekly updates on Instagram. She escalated over time from composed pleas to raw, crumbling grief. Her public visibility increased as the investigation deepened. Savannah's arc is one of sustained and escalating public mourning played out in full view of the country. Annie, the middle child, appeared in the early videos and then went silent for 22 days. She returned at the March 2nd memorial. Her silence generated enormous speculation. Her husband's behavior generated intense scrutiny. Annie went quiet, and the world noticed immediately. Cameron, the eldest, made the most operationally structured communication of any family member in the investigation, appeared one more time on day 6, and then vanished more completely than any of them. Not 22 days of silence. 27 days and counting as of this recording. And unlike Annie, he did not reappear at the memorial. Nobody is asked why. To understand why the silence is worth examining, you have to understand the financial landscape this family exists inside, because it adds a dimension to the picture that has been almost entirely ignored when it comes to Cameron. Nancy Guthrie's home in Tucson's Catalina foothills was purchased in 1985 for $85,000. Its current estimated value is approximately $1.1 million. It sits on a full acre of Sonoran desert land, over 3,700 square feet, and it has been in the family for more than 40 years. It is the most significant asset Nancy is known to hold. Now look at the 3 children who would presumably figure into any inheritance. Savannah Guthrie has an estimated net worth of $40 million. She earns approximately $8 million a year from NBC. She owns an $11 million townhouse in Brooklyn Heights with her husband, Michael Feldman. For Savannah, any share of her mother's estate would be emotional, not financial. She does not need the money. She does not need the house. An inheritance for Savannah would be about memory, not economics. Annie Guthrie is a poet, author, jeweler, and publicity director. She works with the University of Arizona Poetry Center. She and Tommaso, a middle school teacher, own a home valued at approximately $650,000 about 10 minutes from Nancy's front door. Annie's financial life is solidly middle class. A share of a $1.1 million property would represent a genuinely meaningful change in her circumstances. Cameron Guthrie is a retired colonel with 26 years of service. Under the Department of Defense's High 36 pension system, a colonel retiring at that service level would receive an estimated annual pension of over $100,000. His total net worth has been placed at somewhere between $2 and $5 million. Cameron is financially comfortable. He is not struggling, but he also does not occupy anything close to Savannah's financial tier. There are no public records indicating how Nancy's estate is structured. No will, no trust arrangement, and no distribution plan has been disclosed. Nobody knows whether the split between the 3 children would be equal, whether the property has been placed in trust, or whether it would move through probate. What is known is that there is a substantial wealth gap between the 3 siblings, and that the family's primary shared asset sits empty right now surrounded by yellow flowers while the woman who owns it has not been found. This does not suggest that inheritance motivated anything. FBI profilers who have analyzed this case point toward obsession, targeted grievance, or personal fixation, not family estate planning. But in any investigation where the victim is elderly and the estate is material, the financial positions of potential heirs are a standard part of the picture. And that picture has been examined through exactly one household in this investigation: Annie and Tommaso's. Nobody has looked at it from the perspective of the retired colonel living 2,300 miles away in Vermont. Now step back and look at the expert commentary this case has generated, because it reveals something important. Every former FBI profiler, every behavioral analyst, every retired agent who has appeared on television in connection with this investigation has focused on 2 people: Tommaso and Annie. The last known sighting, the car in evidence, the husband who never spoke, the sister who went quiet for 3 weeks. Former agent Jim Fitzgerald built his entire public framework around inside knowledge and behavioral deviation. Jim Clementi profiled a suspect with either a peripheral connection to Nancy or a fixation rooted in Savannah's public life. Other analysts examined the backpack, the gloves found near the property, the search corridors, and the surveillance gap. Not one of them mentioned Cameron by name. Not once. That absence could mean investigators cleared him so completely and so early that there is nothing to discuss. It could mean that a Vermont address and a military record place him so far from the physical evidence that no analyst considers him relevant. It could mean the profilers have correctly identified the right household, and Cameron is simply not part of the story at all. Or it could mean that the spotlight on Tommaso has been so overwhelmingly bright that it cast everyone else in a shadow, including the eldest biological child of the missing woman, who went quieter than anyone and was absent from the most important public moment of the entire investigation, and whom no one thought to name. There is one more thread here that needs to be handled carefully, because it is speculative and should be understood as such. Jim Clementi described the masked suspect as likely being in his 30s or 40s. Cameron Guthrie is 61. The suspect's described height is 5 feet 9 to 5 feet 10 with an average build. Those descriptors do not appear to match a 61-year-old retired officer. But Clementi also said this crime may have involved more than one person. The walkie-talkie antenna visible in the suspect's pocket suggests coordination. The fully loaded backpack suggests extensive preparation. The 41-minute window between known events suggests disciplined planning. And Clementi noted that whoever did this either surveilled Savannah from the outside over an extended period or had genuine insider knowledge of the house, the schedule, and Nancy's day-to-day vulnerabilities. Cameron Guthrie grew up in that house. He knows the neighborhood. He knows the family's rhythms and routines. He knows the specifics of his mother's medical needs. He knows things about Nancy's daily life that no one with only a peripheral connection to the family could ever learn. That is not an accusation. It is a description of his position in the information chain, a chain that Fitzgerald described as central to understanding how this crime was possible. And he shares that position. So does Tommaso. So, in a different way, does Savannah. Inside knowledge does not make anyone guilty. It makes them someone whose information access, even if shared unknowingly, could potentially have enabled what happened on February 1st. The question is not whether Cameron Guthrie committed a crime. There is no evidence of that. The question is whether investigators examined his information chain with the same level of intensity they applied to his sister's household, and whether the complete public silence around his name reflects a thorough and documented clearance or simply the fact that the spotlight never found him. Now let me give the strongest possible counterargument, because it deserves to be stated as clearly as everything else. Cameron Guthrie served this country for 26 years with distinction. He has no criminal record. He has no public controversies of any kind. He lives more than 2,000 miles from the crime scene. When his mother vanished, he flew to Arizona. He showed up. He recorded the most direct and operationally precise plea to the kidnapper that any family member made in this entire investigation. And then he almost certainly went home, because he has a life in Vermont, possibly a family of his own, and professional and personal obligations that did not pause because of a crisis unfolding in Arizona. His silence after day 7 may be nothing more than a private man, built for privacy, stepping back from the camera after doing what he came to do. Not everyone can sustain an indefinite media presence during a family crisis. Not everyone is equipped for the relentless pace of public grief. Savannah is a television anchor. The camera is her natural environment. Cameron is a man who spent 26 years in institutions that reward discretion and discipline. He said what he needed to say directly and clearly in the first week, and then he may have stepped aside so the person best suited to the public-facing role could carry it. The sheriff cleared every sibling and every spouse. The DNA recovered from the scene does not match any family member. The gloves found near the property were traced to a restaurant worker on March 4th and led nowhere. No law enforcement official, no investigator, no profiler has raised a single public question about Cameron Guthrie. He may be the most clearly innocent person in this entire story. A grieving son who flew across the country, stood up for his family, asked the kidnapper directly to make contact, and then quietly returned to his life, because that is what a private person does when the public work is done. That possibility deserves to be held with exactly the same seriousness as every question raised in this video. But the questions still exist. They exist because of a pattern, not because of evidence. Savannah made 6 videos and has not stopped. Annie went quiet for 22 days and became the subject of national speculation on every major news network. Tommaso never spoke publicly at all and became the internet's default prime suspect. Cameron made the most operationally precise appeal in the investigation, appeared one more time, and then disappeared more completely and more quietly than any of them. In any other missing person investigation, the eldest biological child of the victim going completely silent after day 7 while the case intensified would generate questions. It would generate analysis segments. It would generate at least one former federal agent on at least one cable news program asking aloud, "Where's the son? What shifted between day 7 and day 30? Why was he absent from the memorial when the whole country was watching?" The reason nobody asked is because the glare on Tommaso Dalla Balla has been so blinding that it left everyone standing in its shadow invisible, including a retired Air Force colonel who flew combat aircraft for this country for more than 2 decades, who showed up on day 3, briefed an adversary on day 4, held his sister's hands on day 6, and then vanished without a single question following him out the door. Nancy Guthrie had 3 children. 2 of them are discussed every single day. The third has been invisible since February 7th. And in an investigation built on behavioral patterns, inside knowledge, and the central question of who went silent and why, his absence from the conversation may be the single most overlooked detail this case has produced. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She has been missing for over a month. She has a pacemaker. She depends on daily medication that, without access, could be fatal. Her family has now offered more than $1.2 million in reward money for information that leads to her recovery. Tips can be submitted anonymously. The reward can be paid in cash. Call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Submit tips at tips.fbi.gov. Contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900. Somebody knows who the masked man is. Somebody recognizes that tattoo on his right wrist. Somebody sold him that backpack or saw him loading it. And somebody, whether they understand it or not, may be sitting on the exact piece of information that connects the inside knowledge this crime required to the person or people who acted on it. This is where you come in. If you watch this entire video, you are the kind of person who stays when it matters. Share this video right now. Every view, every share, every comment extends the reach of this case to someone who might hold a piece of the puzzle. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because when something breaks on this case, and something will break, you need to be the first to know. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Did you know there was a third sibling? Did you know that a retired F-16 colonel made the most structured plea of anyone in this family, and then went completely silent before the memorial? Do you think every member of this family has been examined with equal scrutiny, or has the investigation, both official and public, been looking at only 2 of the 3 children? Tell me what you think. And more importantly, if you know anything at all, call the FBI. Because Nancy Guthrie is out there, and she is running out of time.